As you may already know, we can start leveraging artificial intelligence in automations. What this allows us to do is integrate with over 7,000 apps, or in other words, do human-like tasks for 7,000 different applications that could be possibly occurring in our business. Therefore, understanding OpenAI and how to leverage OpenAI's artificial intelligence for automations is going to save you time, is going to save you cost, and overall make your business more effective. So in this video, which is probably going to be pretty long, we're going to go over everything you need to know. Welcome back, y'all. My name is Corbin. For those who have never met me before and you just clicked because you're like, who is this guy? And I actually do want to learn everything I need to know about AI and automation. This is going to be your video. I don't know how long this is going to be, but I'm going to make this extremely in-depth. Now, that being said, if you want to integrate OpenAI into Zapier, e.g. get the key, be able to access it in automations, I encourage you to check out that video right there, the 48,000 Zapier and ChatGPT of OpenAI's beginner. I'm going to link it up there as well. That's not going to go over this in this video. This video is basically episode 2 of this, where it's like, okay, I have it integrated. I'm ready to go. The key's good to go, which you learn all in that 46-minute video. This video, though, is going to give you basically perspective from 2 years of experience condensed into like 20, 30 minutes from me on how to leverage this AI. One last little announcement here. Check me out on Twitter. It's in the description down below. I'm actually creating my own software using artificial intelligence. So that's a pretty cool series I have going on here. I do a bunch of other stuff with ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity AI, everything to do with artificial intelligence. I'm showing you how to do it in your business, in your personal life. But let's jump into today's video. So I'm going to approach this as if you have zero to little knowledge on OpenAI and just artificial intelligence automation. So you can probably skip through this a little bit if you're a little bit more experienced, although you may hear little cool things that you didn't know before if you watch this in full. Let's just start the basics. We're here at OpenAI. OpenAI, if you don't know what OpenAI is, think of it like an AI provider. What does AI provider mean? Basically, if you have developed software or you're familiar with software, it's like a backend. It's like our way of accessing the power of artificial intelligence, and they provide it through a thing we call our API, which in software, all that means is basically data transferring. So in this context, we're basically asking OpenAI to use the data we provide and give us a more effective output we can leverage later on. Numero uno of what you should know is that supposedly, according to OpenAI and what they say in their legal documentation, is they do not train their models on the use in OpenAI's API. If you use this version of ChatGPT and you're not on the Teams plan, yes, they do train their data on the inquiry, the data, everything you put into this, they will train it on. But when we access it through its API, which you'll see in today's video, it's not getting trained on. So that's number one that people may care about. Number two, you're going to be looking at this and you're going to be like, what the heck's going on? All right, let me go in the middle, y'all. So I'm not covering up too much of this. You're going to be like, what is all this? So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of all of this because we can actually access this in a no-code way using Zapier. So it's actually pretty pertinent and relevant for you understanding all of this. Also, I know someone in the comments is going to be like, you're talking too fast, Corbin. Put me at 0.75 speed. This is just how I talk. I mean, not in every video, but especially these kind of videos where it's like a lot of information I want to condense. A lot of my viewership likes it when I talk like this just because they're like, you know what, I just want the information. Let's go. Okay, first things first. GPT-4 Turbo, GPT-4. What should we know here? From here on out, we're just going to be like Avita Zen GPT-4, and we're going to proceed with GPT-4 Preview. This has 128K context. What is that, Corbin? Okay, that's this. 1,000 per token. Think of it as 750 words. Okay, the next question might be, okay, well, 1,000 tokens is equal to 750 words that we're processing. What do you mean by process? Basically, AI is looking at and doing something with it. There is context, or the way they charge is based off input and output. As you'll notice, input, so let's say I put in 5,000 words, is cheaper than the output, what the AI model says. So I put 5,000 words here, and then it gives me 2 sentences. That's going to be pretty cheap because it's, 2 sentences, what is that? Maybe 40 words. Therefore, you don't have to worry too much your output. Unless your outputs are huge, which I'll show you in this video is probably not a good thing to do. Majority of the time, the majority of your costs associated when using an endpoint like this is going to be with the input. So as you see, as of now, it's 1 cent per 1,000 tokens. Or in other words, 1 cent for 750 words we process. So scrolling down here, we come to our next model. Side note as well, this bucket hat is from Zapier. So this is a Zapier bucket hat. I think I needed to wear because this video is basically going to be the meta of AI and automation. GPT 3.5 Turbo. Corbin, why do we have 3.5? Why do we have 4? What's going on here? So 4, think of it in very human-oriented task. For example, if I want to generate a draft email, I'm using GPT-4. If I want to generate a social media caption, I'm using GPT-4. 3.5 then comes into play of why would I use 3.5 if the outputs of 4 are better. 3.5 is your way of accessing complex code task, but with layman dictation. Other words, you writing a prompt. Hey, in this paragraph, what is the one sentence that has this word in it? The way you use 3.5 is much more of data filtration and condensation. Take this large 10,000 word document, condense it into 2,000 words, and then use GPT-4 in order to analyze it. So you're going to look at 3.5 as much more of a data condenser and a data filterer, which will make more sense as we jump into today's video. And as you'll notice, and I'm part of the reason why I'm making today's video, is they slashed the prices again. We're looking at 0.0005 for 1K token and 0.0015 for output. To give perspective, I believe the input used to be 150% more when this just started with the API endpoints. For now, though, it's getting cheaper. That's a trend in the industry overall. I'll go over that with my software development. You can check that out if you want to. Next, Assistance API. What is this, Corbin? Assistance API is pretty useful, and I have more complex tutorials you can check out on this channel if you want to do so. If you don't see them right away, they're either in this playlist at the end here, or you can type in Corbin, Assistance API, ChatGPT, and Zapier in your search bar, and I should show up. If I don't, then I guess I'm failing YouTube SEO. Assistance API is basically, you notice in ChatGPT how chats, when you talk to it, it can remember previous context of what you said. That's kind of what Assistance API does in the context of automation and accessing API. This is a very simple way of describing it. I know some in the comments is going to be like, well, no, chill out. I'm describing it in the sense of using it in automations and AI. It's much more just understanding previous context, which we can leverage. This video, I'm not going to go too much into this. You can check out my other videos for this. When accessing 3.5 and 4 in automations, these are one-shot outputs. For example, we're basically putting in one input and getting one output. Assistance API, we can have a ton of previous context and get a more in-depth output. Hope that explained that well. Let me know if you were confused in the comments. Fine-tuning models, we don't have to worry about. Embedding models, we don't have to worry about. Base models, we don't have to worry about. Images, you may need to worry about. DALL-E 3 is really cool. If you don't know what DALL-E 3 is, this is an AI image generator. I would say this is probably the second best AI image generator in the market, first being Midjourney. No, I'm not sponsored by either of these companies. This is just from 2 years of experience up to this point, or maybe a year and a half. Audio models, we do a little touch on this a little bit. We can still access this in the context of Zapier. It is not too relevant for what we do for most workloads, but think of it as text-to-speech, speech-to-text. This handles basically audio or speech, translations, stuff of this nature. We have two major apps that we're going to be integrating into Zapier, which you probably already have if you watched the other video I pointed out, which is going to be OpenAI and it's going to be ChatGPT. Corbin, why are they separated? Because of the fact that both fundamentally do really different things. In the sense of basically think of OpenAI's integration to Zapier as every single endpoint other than GPT-4 and GPT 3.5. The image generation, the whisper, random stuff like fine-tune things for creating translations. This is where you're going to use OpenAI. But the majority of your stuff is, unless you're really leveraging DALL-E 3, the majority of your stuff is going to be ChatGPT. GPT. I say that with a B. I don't know. Maybe I have a lisp. But ChatGPT is going to be our main one here. What you'll notice is Zapier does try to help us by basically adding a bunch of stuff they could do. Write an email, make it a little bit more user-friendly. But for most stuff, as you'll notice on this channel, is we use conversation because we know how to proctor it. On top of that, there is also reference to finding or creating assistants, which I referred to earlier. Okay, we caught up? We good to go? We understand what OpenAI is. We understand the cost. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Why don't I just use GPT-4 all the time? Why do I even care about 3.5? Because it's a lot cheaper. 1 penny for 1,000 tokens or 750 words. Or alternatively, are we going to pay 0.0005 for 750 words? That's why we need to understand and differentiate when using between 3.5 and 4. Knowing this as a good rule of thumb, and I've talked about this in the past, basically, if you have to have very complex logic where four times you need to use some AI needs to be used multiple times, always end your conversion event of whatever the end data that you want it to look like with a GPT-4 block. Everything before that can be 3.5, but it's very important that you end on a 4 block because this is like insurance in the world of AI, where even if you could do it for 3.5 block, you want to do it for, is you want consistent outputs at scale if you run that automation 1,000 times. Hope that made sense. Let's jump back over to Zapier. All sounds great, Corbin, but how the heck do we leverage it in the user interface of Zapier? Let's find out. So I'm going to do this ChatGPT. On top of that, let me show you a little trick here. So when you're obviously dealing with AI or just dealing with making automations, you might not know what to go or might not know what to do. So create test data. So the test data I'm going to use today is going to be this pseudo invoice. This is my test data today. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new folder called test data in Google Drive. This is all free services by Google. And we're going to go ahead and drag our test data into test data folder. The reason we're doing this is so that I can just play around a little bit in this user interface and I can, get some stuff going here. So I'm going to do Google Drive. And this part of the video, y'all, is I'm going to show you basically why I would use 3.5 in a context. You're going to learn a little bit about prompt engineering. You're also going to learn why I would use 4 in a different context with some prompt engineering. So we're going to go ahead and do new file and folder. Choose our account. Here's going to be our courses account here at Web Cafe AI. We're going to choose our folder, which is going to be test data. And then we're going to continue here, test this trigger. Now, if this all looks new to you and you have never used Zapier before, then you just found the gold mine. Check out this channel. Check out the playlist at the end here. I have over 400 videos. Yes, crazy. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue to select the record here. And as you'll notice, the reason I do that is because of the fact that we got our relevant information here, but we need to get the text out of this doc. To do so, we're actually going to use Zapier's new tool here, which is called Files by Zapier. Also want to point out, big update that Zapier did as of recently is they made it so that their toolbox, what do you mean their toolbox? Their toolbox, which is basically like their way of making it so it's easier to do logic without doing code. If I come over here and I come to Zapier, I think majority of these now are free. They used to count as tasks, but they're actually free now, which is really nice on Zapier's end, giving them a competitive edge. We're going to go ahead and choose our data here. So we're going to do text from file. This is our test data. We're going to do file here, and we're going to do file text. And we're going to go ahead and hit continue test step here. So in today's video, it's purely just to give you context of how to even talk to these models. But if you actually want to see real world examples, real world automations I've built in businesses backends, you can check out that playlist. I'm going to hit continue, and we're going to go ahead and get our data here. So as you see, it's text invoice. And scroll down. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and bring in that ChatGPT block. So first ChatGPT block we're going to play with is going to be the 3.5. Event here, we're going to go ahead and see there's a ton of stuff here. So the only ones that I personally used and find value in are going to be conversational assistant, which I made videos on you can check out. But in this video, we're just going to do conversation. This basically allows it so we're not bowling and we got the rails up to make it so like we can't do crazier stuff. We're going to bowl but without the rails. We don't need the rails. Although those rails can be fun when you just chuck in, it's like goes like crazy. All right, so user message. This is basically what you've heard on your TikTok, what you've heard on your YouTube, what you heard on Twitter. New jobs incoming, prompt engineering. This is like this thing that you've been hearing, okay? That being said, if you want to know how to monetize prompt engineering, I have a video on that as well. Okay, user message. We're going to go ahead and basically put in the data. This is how I like to format majority of my prompts. We're going to do context. We're going to edit format, parameters. So these are all just different terms that we use here. Also, we got important. Now, I rarely use important. Important only comes into play if basically you've tried multiple times at an output and it's really just not listening. We do important. Furthermore, if it's really not listening and you've proctored it a ton, we have little tricks for that. We use JavaScript and we're going to be able to remove certain characters. That might have sounded confusing, but don't worry. It's actually pretty simple. As I said before, why do we use 3.5? 3.5 comes into play. Actually, let me make sure I wasn't covering this, y'all. Okay, I wasn't. That would have been bad. 3.5 comes into play when we're condensing data, finding data, and basically not doing complex outputs that think of it like another human's going to read. That's kind of how you want to use 3.5. So let me just give you an example of this. We got an invoice here. Let's just say the specific data point that we're trying to grab here is how much is due on this invoice. All we got to do is this. Context. We received an invoice for our company. And then here's what we do. So we're going to refer to it. This is like kind of like coding, but not really, because like it's like we're identifying variables, but without the constant stuff. So all we gotta do is this. We gotta do invoice, the text. Perfect. Also want to point out, if you're brand new, text semicolon doesn't show up. It isn't red. It's only the invoice, the actual text itself, right? This stuff that just popped up. The amount due. We're just gonna do a very simple prompt here. 3.5 memory key. Also, side note, we go to models here. As you'll notice, we got 0125, 0613, 0613. What the heck does that mean? That is January 25th, June 13th of 2023. June 13th. So those little dashes, that's like outdated models. But what that means for us is we're always going to be basically pointing to the one that just looks normal. So for this context, we're just going to do 3.5 turbo. That's fine. Memory key, the most important thing that you need to understand, and I made a whole video on it as well. This is extremely important. This is what allows for consistent outputs. It can be anything. Random 32 character string. All right, we're going to come down here. A lot of this stuff you don't have to worry about too much. Continue, test step. And let's just see what this first output's going to look like. So we should see 750 USD. Perfect. The amount due on the invoice is 750 USD. I don't like that. Why don't you like that? There's too much talking. So we're going to do the amount due, just the amount due, no text before or after. Okay. Then we're going to add a 1 here, refresh the memory key, slot. And we're going to come down here. We're going to continue, test this step. So basically, if this comes out to be 750 USD and is locked in with that memory key, then we can ensure every single time data that is pushed through this system, we're going to get just the 750 USD, 1,000 USD, 2,000 USD, whatever it may be. There we go. That's 3.5 for you. We understand 3.5, the ability to grab data, condense data, etc. Let's go ahead and add a ChatGPT 4 block here because I want to add a little bit of a layering effect, which is pretty cool. Here we go. We're going to go do conversation, continue. We're going to do model. We're going to go to GPT-4 as our endpoint. There we go. And here's what we can do. So Assistance API does help with this a little bit better, but sometimes you don't really need to use an Assistance API, and you can just use previous outputs from ChatGPT to make your later outputs from ChatGPT better. So let's just assume that in that first one there, we actually just condensed a bunch of information for our GPT-4 block to internalize. We're going to go ahead and just say this, context, based on the amount of this invoice, and semicolon parentheses. I like using parentheses. Maybe it's just because it's from code, or kind of. We're going to go ahead and do an output here. It also just keeps it so it makes the data point is easier to be read by the AI model. Context, based on the amount of this invoice, 750 USD, so we're using previous ChatGPT output here. Generate a 1-sentence or 4-sentence email to a potential client that this is the amount due. So it doesn't have context on the invoice yet. I could add it here as a text block, but I'm just going to go ahead and just give a little bit more information here. We are a lawn service company named Apples and Bees. Applebee's? Hold up. Applebee's. I haven't been there like for years. I don't know. Apples and Bees. Okay. Applebee's. Is that like a... Okay. We'll let that slide. Generate 4-cent... Okay. Generate memory key. Random 32 character string. Continue. Test this step. So we're going to go ahead and get a output that we could, in theory, basically the end user would see. Like the end user would read this. We could add tone, parameters, bullet point list, bold this, HTML output, whatever it may be. This is where we leverage the AI language model in the GPT-4 context. So as you see, subject Apple and Bees lawn service, your invoice is due. Dear valued customer, we are writing to inform you that Applebee's lawn service has completed the job and the invoice of our work is currently pending. So knowing this, knowing that we can basically only leverage GPT-4 for outputs that are read by humans, 3.5 for condensing data, you kind of have a good comprehension now of when to use different models. You could, in theory, still use 3.5 for a email output. The question is, do you want to give that much discretion to something that could possibly lead to a failed conversion because of the fact that the way the AI language model wrote it wasn't up to par of what it should sound like? Which leads us to our next part of this video, which comes to cost association and how do we optimize these flows once we build them out. So as you'll notice, if I go to actions here, if I come down to test, you will notice if we scroll down here, we have a little bit of history context tokens used, 317, and then history context tokens remaining. What you need to worry about is the tokens used. This tells you that for this prompt, listen, all this text, all this data for this user request message, it had costed us around 317 tokens of usage. Coming back over here, this is where this cost comes into play. Let's go back over here. Then we come over here and we go to this one, go all the way down here. And as you'll notice, the amount of tokens used for this one was only 61 for GPT-4. Now, your next question might be, okay, how the heck do we effectively gauge? So once I build out automation, how the heck do I effectively gauge how much that's going to cost me each run? I got a solution for you. So I'm going to leave this in the description down below, but this is our marketplace, a webcafesoftware.com. I'm going to go to AI usage calculator here. And there we go. All you need to do is select the majority model that you use or the model in one of the flow parts. You want to put in the cost per Zapier task, which you can find out by watching this video. You can put the number of tasks per run, which is basically every single block here, right? Except the Zapier ones now. And then if I come back over here, we put the tokens per run, which I just showed you. And then we can just spitball it. Okay, so hypothetically, if I did this 100 times, how much would that cost me? It will give you the AI cost and the associated Zapier cost. And here's the best part. This is free to use. So proceed. If you felt like you learned something up to this point, make sure you leave a like. It's completely free and it helps me out here. Now, if you liked everything you just saw in this video and it scratched a part of your brain, you were just like, hold up, I need to learn more. This playlist is going to pop up at the end here. Look how many videos for you to go through. Okay, let me just point out some that are really cool that will get your brain really flowing. I like this one. This shows you how to do like code-like logic for no code in a no-code way. This one's amazing if you want to check out Banner Bear, which is basically, think of it like Canva, but now we can do automatic stuff in Canva. No more design. Please make my thumbnail. No. Banner Bear. Coming over here. Jumped into every single possible app that I thought was really cool in the context of automation and AI. Scrolling down here, this one shows you how to automatically deal with Excel sheets. Okay, no more manual data entry, which is the bane of most people. Then we got basically how to integrate every single app in the world with Zapier. Check that one out. Coming down here, this one does an automatic ebook. So if you want to create automatic ebooks, you can check that off AI. This one is an in-depth video on the memory key. Keep scrolling down here. This one is probably the most useful video that I made in this playlist. It only has 2,000 views. But basically, if you don't want to write emails anymore, watch this one. It's called Guided to AI-Driven Email Solutions. Extremely valuable video. If we keep going here, we got this entire right here. So we got 50 plus files ease. This is the Assistance API I was talking about. So if you see my face like that, this is what I'm talking about right here. That is going to give you context on Assistance API. And there's a ton more. The only other playlist I can suggest to you if you want to do stuff other than automation and AI, but just like AI tools in general, is I would suggest you check out AI tools for modern business. I'm not going to link this one, but you can check it out on my channel here. Ton of different stuff when it comes to different tools you can start leveraging in your business. So that just about does it. You have a fundamental understanding of how to leverage artificial intelligence with a no-code solution like Zapier. As of course, this can apply to other automation platforms like Pipedream and Make. I just prefer Zapier for a multitude of reasons. I jump into like a bunch of videos of why, but all you need to know is this. Right now, in this modern day and age, AI and the ability to access it through API like this in this manner has only been capable in the last 1 to 1.2 years. Therefore, what does that mean? That means there is a bunch of possibilities and potential for your own business to start leveraging in your backend and really streamline stuff. I'm telling y'all, majority of tasks that you do right now could probably be automated with the use of AI. That is because AI has become so fundamental that a lot of stuff, a lot of outputs, a lot of stuff we do already doesn't necessarily need a lot of creative thinking. It's a lot of just data reformatting, repurposing, and stuff of this nature. I'll see you in the next video. So that is the playlist I was talking about. Jumping into Zapier and all 5,000 apps. That's a random video. Not too sure on that. That's my face. See y'all later.